Hello, my human family. Today we have a guest I've been trying to chase down for a while now, but you don't want to hear about my personal life. We have the wonderful, the spectacular, and someone whose work helped me a lot through my early days of transition, which I thank her for constantly, and she's probably tired of it by now. Uh, um, Vera Wylde. Vera, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I mean, it's stressful times for, not particularly fun reasons, but I'm doing all right, all things considered.
Good. Are you stay? Everybody in the house is safe, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm able to do my job from home. Actually, the stay-at-home order in the state where I live got lifted last week, which meant I was able to see my partner for the first time in 2 months. So, things have actually gotten a little better lately.
Yeah, really good. Uh, we're still in lockdown here. We're specifically this house is quarantined, but uh, um, my kid was in the hospital, so
Oh,
doing okay now. So
good.
we're good. uh, so the question, as I asked, and I rarely ask it straight out, but I'm gonna go with the straight being a relative term question. So who are you? What do you do, and why do you do it?
Oh boy. That, so I'm gonna have to actually narrow down the field because I could probably take up 15 minutes answering that question alone.
It's your chat it's your chatter to have.
Okay. So I'm Vera Wylde. That is not the name that I was born with. It's not the only name that I go by. And depending on what of my online presences you follow, it may not even be the one that folks know me by. But I run at present three main YouTube channels. I have a podcast feed, and I am a burlesque performer. Now, one of the YouTube channels and the burlesque performance is done under Vera Wylde, Wylde spelled W-Y-L-D-E, because I had to spell it in the most pretentious way that I could possibly think of. And then my other stuff is done under Council of Geeks. Now, that's two YouTube channels, Council of Geeks and Break Room of Geeks, and that's also what the podcast feed is under. Why do I do it? Well, I think two reasons mainly, and then a bunch of sub reasons. The admitted overriding reasons for all of this is it's important for me to keep busy to stay out of trouble, and I love attention. So, that's a good formula to continue to crank out stuff where people have to stare at my face or listen to my voice. But beyond that, there is just hope of, with my geekier stuff, getting people to think about, certain properties or things that they like in a different light, or, maybe try and help them figure out why they think about something the way they do, or to hear a perspective that they haven't heard before. And with the Vera Wylde stuff, I mean, the burlesque is probably the most self-serving. I just really love an audience. But that channel, the Vera Wylde channel, and the book I published a couple years ago called Skirting Gender, that was all very much geared towards the fact that I had to figure out so much stuff and I still am figuring out so much stuff on my own, because I didn't, and still don't, seem to fall into a lot of the categories that largely get talked about when you talk about gender expression. Because a lot of it tends to be geared towards either clear binary transition, which is not me, or if it's talking about gender bending outside of transitional situations, it's usually being talked about as a sexual thing and fetishistically, which is also not me. So I kind of felt the need to become my own point of reference because I couldn't find a lot that felt like it represented me. And I thought, well, there may be other people who feel similarly like, God, is there no one else like me? And I kind of rolled the dice on that because there was the distinct possibility that I would start putting out that stuff and only to discover, oh, there really is no one else like this. Okay, great. But it has seen various videos in various ways, because obviously that channel particularly has evolved over time. It started out very much as just very practical cross-dressing advice.
Yeah.
And then at this point, it's much more about me as I continue through my own journey with my own gender and self and sense of self. So it started out very, sort of education oriented in terms of very practical things. And at this point, that is much more almost sort of me publicly processing through my own figuring out of myself in partly as something that I know helps me, and maybe it'll help other people too if they see it.
Well, if it helps, it helped me. It did, and if I'm the only one, I thank you, and if I'm not, I thank you on behalf of all of us.
I know it sounds egotistical and self-serving, but I honestly don't get tired of hearing that. I try to at least reply back and acknowledge whenever I get a message or a DM or a email or something along the lines of saying, something you put out was helpful to me or to someone I care about. I really try and make an effort. I don't always reply to them as quickly as I should, but I try and make an effort to reply to those, because those really do touch me when I hear that.
Well, it's at this point because I wrote like long paragraphs on Vera Wylde channel, and I write very little. I write one or two sentences on Council of Geeks. Not that I don't like. I love Council of Geeks. Trust me, I watch. That's one of the 5 channels that if it comes on, I switch right over. But I told you I would tell you something strange right at the beginning, and
You
here
did.
it is. I did not know you were the same person. I was subscribed to both of them. No idea. Until you did the hat. Until you took the hat off and changed the glasses the one day, I went, oh my God, I understand how Clark gets away with it.
Funnily enough, you're not the only person to have told me that. There were only like 2 or 3 others, but like you were not the only person to be like, oh my God, I was subscribed to both and didn't know, which was amazing to hear, which first of all, statistically actually kind of unlikely given that there was like no crossover in topic. And the spheres that those videos would have been passed around in completely different, but just the fact that happened like to a handful of people, that does tickle me actually quite a bit.
Well, it's one of those things. It's because you're looking at it through different lenses. Well, you literally, but in general.
Well, I mean, I think it's much easier to spot now because I present very similarly now. I rarely have makeup on Council of Geeks, but I have my hair down now, and I'll have these glasses frames. But at the time that I came out on Council of Geeks as also being Vera Wylde, I had only just recently gotten my hair dyed, so I was still almost entirely using wigs on the Vera Wylde channel. I always had my hair up under the hat when I was on Council of Geeks. They were completely different frames. So there weren't as many immediate cues. These days, if someone told me that, I was like, you're not looking very closely.
Well, yeah, and your voice is similar. You've merged the 2 voices a lot more too.
I do. I mean, my natural speaking voice is kind of a little bit more pitched up than it used to be. I can probably bring it back down. So like a year or 2 ago, it was probably more down around here as my standard speaking voice. Whereas these days it kind of settles up here a bit more. And I use I think I still pitch up slightly more for the Vera videos, but it's not as much of a deliberate contrast as it used to be.
No, that's one of the, once you start doing it, at least in my case, I can't go down. I have a bass voice. I mean, a really bass voice.
I'm a baritone. I understand.
So, oh, good. It's like this. I can't pitch up much higher than this anyway. So, when did you? The one thing I wasn't able to find, because this is why I started going back over the Vera stuff, is when you came out, like as a gender fluid person, or
so I did a video, I guess it would have been about 5 years ago, at a guess, between 4 and 5 years ago, where I on the Vera Wylde channel, where I talked about adopting that term. And boy, it was a while ago, and I haven't rewatched that one. But I think it's actually the first video. Like, if you go to the playlist for the gender fluid vlogs, it should be the first one there. I don't know now. See, I'm saying that I'm not sure off the top of my head. But it was about 4 or 5 years ago that I kind of found and adopted that term, because I have a bit of a contentious relationship with labels in general.
yeah.
I understand their value. I'm not anyone who's going to say like labels are stupid. No, they have value. They're a helpful shorthand, a shared understanding of terms. And for some people, I know they can be very helpful in terms of, you finding a label that fits you and realizing, oh, if there's a word for what I am, then I can't be as strange as I thought I was. Like I've had conversations with people about that where they've had that experience. For me, labels are annoying because they almost never really fit. They're basically just close enough. So up to that point, I've been identifying as a cross-dresser largely just because I hadn't found anything that explained me any better than that. So I was kind of on that by default. Gender fluid suits me pretty well, partially because of the inherent just nature of the words. It means that my gender is a fluid thing and it doesn't stay put, which means that the term itself is already explaining the non-concrete, non-fixed nature of things in a way that actually has made things quite a bit easier. So that is a label I've been happy to embrace, largely just because it feels more like a proper fit than just having to settle, which is what I was doing before. But even that, it's not like I'm like, oh, thank God I finally found out what I am. It's like, no, it's a helpful term.
Well, yeah. I mean, all of them are just approximations. Even male and female is still an approximation, no matter how butch or femme you are. But we're not supposed to say that out loud. That's the quiet parts out loud. Because I was even I was checking from, like I said, I found you around the time I was coming out, and I went back over a lot of the stuff, but because you were still using crossdresser at the middle end of last year.
I was, but only insofar as I think that was like a cross-dressing product review. So it wasn't that I was identifying myself as a cross-dresser. It was just an acknowledgement that the thing I was talking about, it's kind of aimed at that consumer demographic. So I think that would have been the last time that the term has really come up in my videos. But again, wasn't really being used to refer to me and how I was identifying.
Yeah, the tricky thing is because I was listening a lot differently with a much different headsets. headspace than I was in then. Um, uh, and you elided the issue is more when I'm it just sort of you're just because specifically was the that I wanted to go back over because it's one of those the first time you spoke to me, if that makes some kind of sense,
Okay.
was talking about passing privilege and how the feeling on that, because I had just, and in all my incredibly garish makeup and over foundation and all of that, gone to a trans meeting and met my friend's wife, and my first thought was she's not even trying, and then I came home, I was watching your stuff, I went, oh fuck, this was entirely on me, wasn't it?
Well, the thing about something like that, especially, and I try to bring it across in that video, is I try not to be overly judgmental about anyone who slips in that headspace, because I have to come to my own culpability on that.
Oh sure.
So it's an easy thing to sort of fall into, but it is an important thing, I think, to keep hold of, because to sort of integrate my two ends here, and to get geeky on it for a second. You know, you have the Star Wars thing with Yoda saying, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. With that sort of thing, and with, you know, the frustration that, well, this other person who identifies similar to me isn't putting in the effort, leads to the thought of, they make me look bad, leads to the thought of, I wish they would go away because they're a blight on what I am and people like me. Not to say that everyone who starts at thought 1 ends up at thought 3, but
No.
there is a chain of concepts there, and definitely that's a chain I've had to deal with quite a bit in the last few weeks. So
my causality chain was the she's not even trying. Wait, do I look that like that? Was
that's the fear.
my causality? Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was doing it terribly. I have very little makeup on now, and right now, because it's nighttime, and the way the night shadows are around here after a particular time, it's giving me a little more darker eyes than I want. But
I mean, the only reason I'm lit up at all is because I'm in the room that I shoot in, and I haven't turned off my camera lights yet. So,
oh, see, you know. Well, you always look good, so either one.
I'd see. You said, you know what's funny? I had on Twitter, I think it was yesterday. I linked someone a video that basically said, like, look, you want my opinion on the kind of thing you're talking about? It's basically this. But it was a video from like 2 or 3 years ago, and
Yeah.
I had very scruffy, very visible facial hair. It was really weird to look at that video, because I needed to confirm, this is the one where I said that, right? Oh, it is. And then I linked it. I'm like, you know, I don't feel, you know, dysphoric or anything about looking at that, but that's a weird thing for me to look at now.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. Like, I mean, I found Council of Geeks like a long time ago, and you were still either doing it with people intermittently, and then, or you had that seizure inducing back thing that was spinning.
The early days when we don't know what we're doing.
Oh yeah, I still think my naked purple fairies look good, so I'm probably wrong.
I will never knock the presence of naked purple fairies.
The but my guitar is on the other side in case I have to switch very suddenly to another personality. Um, well, the thing, I mean, I remember what it is. What made you? What did make? Let's. I'm asking you to. I'm asking you the question like I don't know the answer because I do. But
Okay.
what the time when you more or less started integrating the two channels. I mean, they're still of very different purpose, but integrating yourself into both channels as you more fully are. What was the thing that made you do that?
Unfortunately, the main driver that made me do that in the way I did and at the time that I did was fear. Because I came out as being gender fluid on the Council of Geeks channel in the video for the Q&A for 10,000 subscribers. Now that number was really significant, not just for the raw number of hitting 5 digits, but because that was how many subscribers I had on the Vera Wylde channel. And what I was afraid of was that if I don't address this, the bigger Council of Geeks becomes, because at that point it had really picked up pace, and I knew it was going to outpace Vera Wylde shortly thereafter, and it did.
Yeah.
My fear was that the more people who watch Council of Geeks, the more people who subscribe to this, the more likely it becomes that one of them will come across Vera Wylde and recognize me and out me for that. Now, there's no shame in that for me. I wouldn't have been ashamed or I wouldn't have been embarrassed. But the thing is, if it gets revealed by anybody other than me, there is a stigma to it regardless. And no matter if that had happened, no matter what I say, there's still a sense of shame because I didn't just own up to it. So part of doing it at that time was to be sure that I had control of the narrative before somebody could take that away from me. And at the time that I came out, I did not know to what extent that kind of content was going to impact Council of Geeks. And actually, if you watch that video, I said very plainly that it wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But that video and that coming out was so well received, and it didn't cause me a massive dip in subscribers, which I had honestly thought it was going to. Mm. And knowing that had been accepted gave me the confidence to start to talk about LGBTQ plus representation as a regular topic, because I didn't have to worry about, like, will people either A, wonder if I'm stepping in on something where I have no business talking because I'm not presenting as part of this community, or B, yeah, oh goodness, they're going to figure out I am when I haven't really come out and addressed it on this channel. So no longer having those things hanging over me, it freed me up to when I had the impetus to start talking about that, which is now a fairly regular thing that I do on that channel.
Yeah. I was just agreeing.
And so at this point, that's pretty much monthly. And it was the start of this year that I pretty much said, I'm not going to wear the hat very much anymore, because it was starting to feel like a costume. Again, not like in a dysphoric way or like in a, this doesn't feel like me anymore, but like I was doing it for no reason other than like brand image. And I didn't feel like that. And I stand by the decision to continue to wear the hat for as long as I did. But I think I'd hit the point where, like, I've gone through a transitional period of, like, I introduced the idea of me being gender fluid. I've been doing these topics at least once a month where I take the hat off and I let my hair down. Maybe it's time just to retire the dang thing. which I more or less did. Which, again, not to say that I'll never wear it again. There will probably be a day where I think my hair looks like garbage and I'll stuff it up under the hat and call it a day. But to no longer feel like I had to present more masculine whenever I was talking about anything other than LGBTQ plus content, that notion was starting to annoy me.
Yeah.
So that again just became something I had to move on from.
Well, if it was originally the rub and tug thing that as the one I remember, because you were angry.
I was angry. That wasn't the first one. The first one, I'm pretty sure. The first one where I think I let my hair down because I started talking about the topic with stuff relating to Dumbledore and the Fantastic Beasts movies. Right. I think the one where I let my hair down first and got very angry was the one about queer baiting and the again, Dumbledore came up in that, but the proclamation of creators saying, oh, well, we have representation in here, and then you watch or read the thing, and at best, it's vaguely hinted at. And I was actually what spurred that on was an interview with one of the writers for Solo, a Star Wars story, where one of the writers tried to claim that Lando was pansexual. And no, he wasn't. And like that ticked me off so much. And I remember I'm not great at research. Like I actually make jokes about that, about the fact that I'm not exceptionally good at research. But I can be spurred on by anger sometimes. And I was so irritated at that. I was like, I feel like this has been happening a lot lately. And then I just started cataloging down all the things in the last few years that were effectively that I'm like, and then I got on camera and ranted very angrily for about a half an hour. That is, I think, like my second most viewed video. It was the second video I had that got over 100,000 views. So
that's one of the two I remember, because the ones where you're angry stick out, and I don't mean to. I'm not trying to encourage you to be angry. By all means, don't.
I try and be. Here's the thing. I don't censor myself in video. I don't go in thinking like, today I will be angry. Today I will be. I don't do that. But like, if I feel like I've been doing too much annoyed, like stuff where I'm annoyed, I will try and find things that make me happy to talk about to try and pace that out. It's been tough lately because I've been reviewing Doctor Who Series 7, which, but you know,
I know we disagree on it, so
I'm sorry. Just even on an episode by episode basis, it's a mess.
Oh, it's a total mess, but it's an enjoyable mess to me. I that's the problem. I've watched from the beginning. The quick Doctor Who thing. I was sick. I'm like bedridden for a few years, and I kept trying to go back. Okay, this is supposed to be linked to this, and also, who's the guy who invented the Daleks? Davros. It was the Davros episode. I had no idea who Davros was, and somebody said you should go back to Genesis of the Daleks. I said okay, but Genesis of the Daleks said I should go back to the beginning of that season, which I said okay, and that tied into something that happened earlier, and I said fuck it, I'm just going from the beginning.
You're more committed than I am, because my approach to Classic Who has just been jumping all over the place. There is no way I could just start in 63 and work my way forward. I would get very burned out very quickly doing that. Because like I love Doctor Who and I love classic Doctor Who, but my love for classic is a different beast, and I can't just burn my way through it.
It gets referenced a lot more than people think, and somebody suggested online that, oh, you should start with Midnight. That's great, and it's got a great new monster. I'm like, wow, wrong.
No, that one. No, that's
not Midnight. Vertical. The cars, all the cars in New Earth stuck in the.
Oh, Gridlock.
Gridlock. Thank you.
Well, okay, so that one's less of a terrible idea. So the reason starting at Midnight would be a terrible idea is because it's in contrast to how things usually go for the Doctor, because he can't talk his way out of it, and 95% of the time he can. So, but if you don't have that background for how it's supposed to go, then it doesn't mean anything. Gridlock, I mean, you're not going to fully grasp everything that's going on in terms of like its connections to other things. But as far as the story as a self-contained piece, it's actually a pretty standalone thing. So if someone wanted to use that as a test episode, say, here, well, watch this. If you enjoy this, go to the beginning and keep and work your way through. Because I have a hard time people recommending that people start with Rose. I have a really hard time advising that if they're not committed to stick through more than one series.
Yeah.
And that's not because series 1 is bad. Series 1 is good, and some of the specific episodes of series 1 are phenomenal, but
yeah,
it's not representative of what the show became pretty soon after that. And so it's hard to recommend that people start there, because I worry that they're going to go, oh, well, this isn't what I want. But it's going to become what you want in a year. Just keep going.
I will say, when I saw it, Rose was exactly what I wanted. So. Having suffered through I love Paul McGann, but having suffered through that.
See, I didn't see that until I was well hooked into my love of Doctor Who. But thank God for Big Finish, where he gets to shine properly.
Oh yeah, he's my heart. If I had to pick one, no, I don't know if I'd fall in love with Jodie Whittaker or Paul McGann more. And I'm way too pan for that. See, I'm binary, but I'm pan. At least I have something.
We've all got our flexibilities.
Yes. I'm trying to reach behind me so I can grab my soda, which does not seem to be happening. Speak for a half a second while I sort of half stand up.
I can try and do that. So I suppose for people who don't follow my stuff normally, on Council of Geeks, I talk about Doctor Who more than I talk about anything else, but that is far from the only thing I talk about. Star Wars, Star Trek has come up a few times, Marvel, superheroes, DC, that entire realm of stuff does come up, although Doctor Who is the thing I come back to more than anything else by a pretty good margin.
Yeah, I know you wanted to. I want to go back to Vera. I just wanted to hit Council a little bit here.
That's fine.
Because that's.
Hey, no worries. It's your show.
Yes, but you're the guest, and I'm always up for what the guest wants to talk about.
I'm not that pushy a guest.
Well, I did see on Jesse Gender's thing. That was
that was fun. I had a good time with that.
For anybody who doesn't know, you play a rather aggressively sexual alien, or
yes.
Suggestively sexual alien.
I play an incredibly promiscuous, genderless alien. It was complete typecasting, obviously.
But the Yeah, because I mean, I found council first, and so it's in my head where we are is how my brain is now processing it, looking back into the past. Because much like my own gender experience, the way I think of the past is different now from what I thought of it before.
it's
'Cause-
it's funny, like time is becoming a weird thing now because th- I don't know if this is the case for other folks, but that, there are markers. There are the major markers of time. So like, stick with me as I go through this.
okay,
Um,
I'm here. I'm
like
here for it.
I have clearer memories of being very young than I think most people my age do. Like I have very clear memories that I know I could not have been more than 2 or 3 for, and
Hmm.
like extended memories. But I think part of the reason for that is I had a lot of very clear, distinct markers. My mother and I moved several times when I was that young.
Yeah,
There was a brief time where we were living with my grandparents, and then we moved to a home in Massachusetts. So I know that any memory I have in that home in Massachusetts was this window of time. And then, moving to Vermont, and then, growing up, you have markers of time for what grade you're in, and so on and so forth. The thing
sure.
is, it's been a while since I've had a clear marker of time. Where I'm living now, I have been living for 4 years, I think. And I've been at the same job for 9 years. I've been with my partner, Liz, almost 4 years. And like, that's good. Stability is a wonderful thing, but it does mean that anything that's happened in about the last 4 years, I have a hard time figuring out if it was 3 years ago or 6 months ago. It all kind of bleeds together in a very weird way. And given some of the very significant shifts in my own gender journey that have happened in the last 4 years, it is weird to me how much time is bleeding together right now.
Yeah, and we're in a space where time is meaningless to begin with.
I'm not having that thing where like I don't know what day of the week it is, but I have lost all sense of how long ago something was, because all the days feel so much the same. Like I'll be doing something for work and I'll be like, I swear I did this yesterday. And then like I'll go through stuff. I'm like, no, I did that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. If I wasn't planning out, just I don't want to go too much on this because it's a little bit depressing. Just if I didn't have a, a a schedule like sitting in front of me where I could actually look at, this is what I did on this day and this is what I did on this, I'd be completely lost.
I I I have to schedule now to like get videos done on time.
Yeah.
But like it's a pretty vague schedule. I don't rigidly say I will do this on this day. Like I have a plan and I have a deadline. I know I need to get this done roughly by X, but I don't like schedule out do this bit on these days. I'm like, just get it done by this date. Just don't lose track of it, you moron.
It's true. Although I will say I'm used to having a show on Sunday because I have a show called The Fluid Voice, which I do with other people and guests. Hint, hint. You're welcome anytime. The um, the and last night, as it was getting near 10, I'm going, oh shit! I'm supposed to, because I thought it was Monday, even though I knew it was Sunday, because I'm doing Fluid Voice. It's just
Well, the other thing that helps remind me of what day of the week it is I have, my daughter goes back and forth between me and her mother, so that's a good fixed timer for when a week has elapsed.
yeah, and generally for the growing up period. I don't know what my kid just turned 18, so I'm not entirely sure what markers we have from here. I mean, just turned 18. My kid is also trans. I'll leave your kid out. I leave your kid out. I never ask about people's kids.
No, I don't really. I mean, I talk about her a little because I'll bring her up on Council of Geeks, like if it's a movie that I'm talking about I only saw because I took her to see it.
Yeah.
But and I'll mention whether or not she liked it. That's about the extent of it, though. Like, I've never said her name. She's never visibly appeared. Her voice has popped up a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because she interrupted, and I either left that in because it was cute or forgot to edit it out because I'm lazy. Usually the second one, but think that it's the first one, please. But I've never had her visibly on the show. I've never said her name. And I don't intend to either, just because like she knows what I do with video production and YouTube and everything else. And thankfully she's never asked to be involved, which I'm very grateful for, because I wouldn't want to involve her until I was confident that she understood the potential ramifications and impact on her life of being on a YouTube channel of any size. And that I'm not even that huge, but yeah, until I'm confident that she honestly has a good sense of what she'd be getting into, no.
My kid has a YouTube channel, which I do not promote, and I was asked not to. He has asked me to talk about him on the show if we're discussing trans issues, which I thought, okay, I think that's fair. He came out first. It was very instrumental in my coming out. So finally, after all these, hundreds of thousands of years, but he says, yeah, absolutely talk about him. Just don't put a link or anything, and there's nothing on his name that would link him back to me. So, or link me to him. So, we have a very tight arrangement that way, and that's why I say I'll talk about my kid a little bit, but I won't ask about other people's kids. I figured I should tell you that.
Nope, that's a good policy.
Some people do talk. I mean, that's entirely up to people. Now I'm going to wander back to Vera. How long have you been doing the burlesque?
Okay, so I have to reverse engineer this. Well, so I started doing drag. I was 23 when I started performing drag, and that was in Boston. And then I moved to New York, and I continued performing drag, but I quickly found that I wasn't getting a lot of opportunities, a lot of openings. And I was also finding I didn't particularly love the culture of drag, especially in New York. It's very... I will always preface any time that I talk about this at all with, I have not done a full-on drag show in over 10 years. I haven't lived in New York for about 10 years now. Anything that I say about my experiences should not be taken as a reflection of what the drag scene currently is, because I don't know. That having been said,
yes,
the overall thing that drove me nuts about the drag community is that the vast majority of drag queens don't view each other as a community. They view each other as competition. And unless you have a very direct, very personal relationship with another queen, they will only ever see you as someone who might steal their gigs. There's not a lot of camaraderie in drag queen culture when I was involved in it. Now, I found burlesque completely by accident because, this will be dating myself, because I had a MySpace friend when I was in New York who had taken a burlesque class, and as is fairly typical for a lot of burlesque classes, the final of that was getting to perform a number in an amateur show. And I went to support her, but I also saw the instructor, who's Dottie Lux, perform. And I'm watching some of the students, and then I'm watching her. I'm like, this is so much more in line with my performance sensibilities.
It's more fun too.
It's way more fun. It's so less rigid. The community is so much more accepting and empowering. Again, in my experience, I think I was probably 25 or 26 when I started doing burlesque. So it's been probably around 12 or 13 years that I've been doing it. And about 10 years that I completely abandoned drag to only do burlesque.
I got asked to do it recently, and I'm very nervous about the whole idea.
It was a natural transition for me because I've always been an attention whore, and with performance inclinations, like I did plays when I was in high school and college, sure. And I auditioned to try and get into movies and all this other stuff. So like, yeah, getting on a stage and being in front of people and trying to get a reaction out of them comes to me very naturally, just as a thing. So the fact that I'm now doing it, taking my clothes off, I'm like, not that big a leap. That's not to say that I don't get nerves. Like when the nerves hit me is however much time passes between I'm ready, like makeup, outfit, props, yeah. I'm ready to go, between when I'm ready and when I actually go on the stage. That is the time that is nerve-wracking to me, which is why it can kind of drive me nuts if I am late in the show's lineup.
Yes.
Not to say that like I want to open shows or anything, but that means that I dwell longer in that space where like I have nothing to do except sit here and be nervous.
Well, the thing that's on this side of me is used on stage a fair amount, so I am an attention whore too. So but yeah, I've done it before, and it's been a long. It's been the time of pose. That would have been the last time I did it. The time pose is set in. That would have been the last time I did it. So it's been a while. And I was surprised to be asked. It's like, oh, okay.
I mean, again, that is really a big part of what I love about burlesque. I know performers of all genders, all presentations, all shapes, all sizes, all ages. I have seen. She's come up several times for the Vermont Burlesque Festival. I've seen April March perform, who is
nice.
Who is one of the considered one of the original burlesque queens. I don't even know how old she is now. She's in her 70s at least.
Something like that. Yeah.
At least. She still performs, and she's great. So to say that I've seen the full gamut of performers is an understatement.
Well, yeah, that's we have. Here's what happened. I'll actually throw this out. There was a point where I was in such a haze from dysphoria and just not being in my not that I'm in my proper head now, but I was really not in my proper head in the 6 months or so before coming out. I asked out someone who I knew was a lesbian, partially because I didn't remember that I hadn't come out yet. um, which thankfully I wound up talking with a girlfriend who and we started talking about the burlesque, and I started going to see the shows, and um, a lot of people I knew who I didn't know I knew, were in it. And I'm like, huh, you know. And I said to the one person, I said, if I ever come out, this will probably be something I want to do. And she kept that for a year.
That's a good friend there.
Yes. So when the time came and she saw me being comfortable in my own identity, it was like, all right, you want to do it now? Wait till it's a little warmer.
See, you say that. Well, I mean, like right now, everything's up in the air. But like the burlesque troupe that I work with the most actually takes the summer off because it's too dang hot.
Yeah. Thankfully, we have so many. Oh, Buffalo is such a nicely shaded place. It's not It doesn't seem. You hear the thing. It's cold and snowy all the time, much like you hear about. It's always raining in England, but it's really hot here. But there's always shade everywhere you go. um, Including with the drag queens if you go into the wrong bar.
Drag queens will always offer you shade.
Yeah. I forget I had to bring that one around. Are you still you've been really busy. I mean, you're busy between the two things. You're still doing the whole burlesque thing? You're like more or less in the same schedule? I mean, obviously not now.
I mean, current circumstances aside, yes, which is that I host with the Green Mountain Cabaret, and I occasionally guest perform with them, and then perform where I can, mostly around Vermont, as opportunities come up, because there'll be one-off shows in various places that, or sometimes I'll just get asked if the producer knows me already. I'll get asked if I'm available. So yeah, as much as I can. It's been a while now. It's been a annoyingly long amount of time, but the thing is and this is probably representative of my ADHD. Most people, I think, in my position would have whittled down to at least a couple of, creative projects, whereas I have basically technically four, but effectively two YouTube presences, and burlesque, which, requires costuming and makeup work and practicing and rehearsing and the live performance. And I've written one book, and I am working on right now editing a novel, and I have a podcast that I do intermittently. And if I had the capability of whittling this down to fewer things, I would, because I think I could probably do them better if I wasn't juggling so many of them. But I also just can't.
Well, you're speaking a language I don't understand. Whittling them down. I just went up to 7 days a week on YouTube itself, so that's just that. As of today, I'm on 7 days a week.
Hey, I worked that schedule for a while, so power to you. But you're also talking to someone who is backing down from 4 videos a week to 2. That said, that doesn't mean I'm making less stuff. It's just some of it's going on a different channel, and I'm still doing the same amount of work, just fewer videos. So the idea is that they'll have more work put into them. Not that I've actually created more time for myself.
Well, I was told, well, the interviewing stuff must be easy for you. I said, well, 90% of what I do for the interview is not the interview itself. It's the fact that I will go back and watch as much of that person's stuff as I can, especially the stuff that looks like it's important or is known to be important. And it's like, which is time consumptive.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I shoot a video, most of my videos are between 10 and 20 minutes long, and I edit them pretty quickly because a lot of them I don't add a lot of stuff in editing. So what usually eats up the most time is whatever prep I had to do before I could sit down and make that video, whether it be to watch the movie or whatever that I'm reviewing, or whether it be to assemble a bunch of notes because I need to ramble something out because I'm annoyed again, which is every other week.
Oh yeah. Well, there's not that much to be annoyed at right now.
I mean, I managed to get very annoyed at a Doctor Who novel.
Oh yes.
No.
Oh God, you really hated that thing. Jeez.
Yeah, I did.
Oh. I'm thinking the only thing I'm annoyed about is, well, there were no comic books last month. I
haven't picked up a comic book in ages. So that's the other thing. I have managed to drop some old hobbies that I just did not have the time or the money for anymore. Comic books was one, video games was the other.
Wonder Woman 84 is delayed. That's also. But,
yeah. But I mean, everything's delayed.
Yeah. But on the interesting and post-apocalyptically ironic, The Stand is delayed as well, so which is what it is, and it's
oh boy. Sorry, we can't show you the movie about the post-apocalypse because it's delayed by the actual apocalypse.
I actually had an apocalyptic story. The anthology decided not to come out because of all of this. So I'm sitting here with a story about a nurse who goes a little bit, shall we say, squirrely during a pandemic. What am I going to do with this story? I got paid. I got paid. I'm good.
Well, that's good. At least I have and I've had this concept for ages, and it's actually weirdly annoying. I'm not going to go into a crap ton of detail on it, but it was my take on a post-zombie story.
Yeah.
The concept that I got the farthest with it was to do it as a narrative podcast. But the problem is it keeps becoming more and more and more relevant. And not even from just this. I was writing it completely independent of any of this stuff, but there was when I was sketching out my early outlines, there were certain shootings that were in the news a lot. I'm like, boy, that kind of feels oddly reflective of some of what I'm doing. And then later on, families put in makeshift detention centers. And I'm like, this is even more oddly in line. And now we've got quarantining. I'm like, well, for God's sake, my entire thing takes place at a quarantine zone. What the hell? Can reality stop taking its notes from my goddamn zombie story?
You just hold it for 10 years and I'm gonna just self-release on Kindle, and it can disappear off somewhere.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm gonna end up self-publishing my novel, so I'm not one of those people who subscribes to the idea that self-publishing isn't real publishing. Yes, it's nice to have something acknowledged and accepted by somebody else because it's they consider it you can consider a mark of quality that someone else thought it was worth publishing. But you know what? It's such a crowded market. The odds of you finding someone who's going to do that is pretty low. There's no shame in self-publishing, especially if you've hunted around for a while already.
Yeah, I mean, no, there isn't. I mean, I've got one, well, of what's still available. I've got one self-published, which fine, and I'm going to have another one's coming out, small press, but fine. I mean, both of those are fine. And the book after that, because it's going to be a sequel to the other one, it's going to, you know, I'll self-publish it again. I'm fine. I've got the cover. So it's there was a lot of stigma on it. There shouldn't be. It's ridiculous.
Look, if you put in the work, there is no reason that it cannot be as good as anything else. But I tell you, man, covers are cheap, editors are expensive.
Yes. I've thankfully had good ones, but they, if you know, not often I say this, but thank the gods for Stephen King, because he helped make self-publishing non-stigmatized, less stigmatized, at least in well, our field, the geeky fields, by doing that and insisting that they be recognized as published works if sold over a certain amount, that kind of thing. Yep. Makes sense. We're actually heading up on an hour, which went very fast, and I got, as usual, I got to like question 1 to 3 of what I wanted.
I mean, like you've seen my channels. I can talk forever about just about anything. So I think I can assume some of the blame for that.
Oh, it's a conversation. I'm not really worried about it. Part of it was, part of me saying that is me being silly. My notes are on the back end of an envelope. I'm very not organized. I keep everything in my head as much as possible. So we know where to find you. You have the three things. Fourth, Council of Geeks, the Break Room of Geeks, Vera Wylde, and I'm missing something. Why am I missing something?
Well, it's one that I pretty much never name, is why I allude to it and I pretty much never name it. Partially because it doesn't get updated very often, and also partially because I try and keep my other channels family friendly, and this isn't. But if you look for Drags and Dolls, you can find some of my burlesque numbers and some other people's burlesque numbers as well. It's not just me that's up on there. But if you want an inkling of what I do in that realm, you can look for Drags and Dolls on YouTube.
Okay. That I probably won't put in the underneath thing, just because of the.
Probably best not, like all right, if folks have never been to a burlesque show, like, people have pasties on, it's never outright nudity, but yes, it is risque. That's what it is.
It's what it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah.
It has been wonderful to finally grab you and get you on here.
It's good to talk to you too.
I'm going to say one more time at the end, as I did at the beginning, that you really did help me when I was coming out, and I go back over a lot of that anyway. So even when I'm not trying to study up on you again. So I have to do the YouTube prayer, as they say. Almighty algorithm. If you liked what you liked, please. If you like what you saw, please hit the like button. There's a subscribe down there. which, you know, we'd love to have you to have everybody come back because my guests are always wonderful. And I don't know how I manage that one, but I just pester people to death. I think that's it. Uh, my guest,
Persistence pays off eventually.
eventually. Um, the there's a bell notification. You can get all of them, maybe, sometimes, sort of. Um, if you comment, it helps the algorithm a lot. If you don't comment, think of me in your hearts. Meantime, no to everybody out there. Your life matters, your voice matters, and you matter. And this is all. Thank you to Vera, and we will see you soon. And I know where the end button is. They moved it. Anyway,